Hello there, beautiful people. I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be talking with my good friend, the brilliant, talented, ever so engaging, always insightful Mr. Damien Lamar Robinson. Are y'all ready for this? Let's do it. So, Damien, it has been a long minute since I've seen you. You appeared on the Contrast Project back in Jacksonville in our studio in seasons 1 and 2. And since then, you have taken a project that you talked about earlier on then during those days, and you've stepped it up a notch. So how the heck have you been?
I have been exquisite. I've been good.
Well, that's one way to put it. but quite busy. But quite busy, right?
Yeah, in a good kind of way. I've been doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of growth and self-healing, a lot of reading. And after leaving Florida and moving to New Hampshire, I kind of found myself here, which was good. And that helped me
That's
to
good.
really fast track this project. So,
Well, I tell you, given the current climate in Florida, you left at a good time.
yeah, I've been seeing that. I
Oh
can't
my
help
God.
but keep a pulse. Obviously, a lot of my friends and family, and the majority of my base is right there in my
Yeah,
hometown, Jacksonville. So I see what's happening in the news, and I think the world sees more importantly. And I feel
uh,
like even with this material that I'm writing, it's definitely on point for what's happening in the socio-political climate for sure.
I would definitely think so. And in the material that I've seen so far, and I got to thinking about the exact same thing that you were talking about. I was like, well, this is kind of a Nostradamus moment here. You kind of, touched on a lot of these things, early on. And now you've really, stepped it up a notch. And the end product is nothing more than spectacular, to be honest with you. I haven't seen the print of it, but I
Thank you.
have seen the digital images, and they're spectacular.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
It's been interesting. So a little bit about what I've been working on. So the book is of course Time
Hmm.
Traveler's Digest and
Right.
Anthology, and it is the print version of the magnum opus. So when I was on the Contrast Project before, I was talking about the new adventures of Professor Clock, which
Hmm.
was really the fundamental basis of the project, where it all started 12 years ago when I was dealing with grief and I wanted to create this music and this sound. And then when I moved to New Hampshire, my partner said, you really should flesh the story out. Like, where are your
Hmm.
characters? Like, tell me a little bit more about why you made the music. And I started journaling, and the journaling led me to, as a matter of fact, a book by the name of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Forces you to get up in the morning and you write your morning pages. And I was doing that
Hmm.
in my room before I even hit the ground. And I got this bug where some days I couldn't stop writing, and it just started coming and coming and coming and coming. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, I have a novel over 500 pages, and
Wow.
it's wild. So that's how it all happened. And the music is, of course, the bed or the soundtrack to the overarching project. So Professor Clock is really the protagonist in the story. And I got
Hmm.
all my answers in the last 2 years.
Wow. 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 Uh, and you say, how many pages is the book?
Over 500 pages at the moment.
Wow. At,
It is
at,
right now
at the
in
moment.
editing.
Yep.
Yes, and it is being edited right now. So some of the chapters will may get edited down. So it will definitely be over 400 pages at least. Yeah.
That's and would this be your first novel or book?
Yes, the very first time I've ever written something. Now, of course, I loved creative writing in high
Uh-huh.
school, and I've always I've been a songwriter for a long time. But writing a
Oh yeah.
novel, that's a whole different world, you know.
Sure.
And I think about all the times where I posted on Facebook, and a friend of mine would actually say, he pulled me to the side. He's like, "Listen, man, you share some really amazing stuff on Facebook. Why don't you save that for your book?" So, and but that was my own personal writing, and it had nothing to do with Time Traveler's Digest. So I realized that I was a writer,
Hmm.
you know.
Well, a lot of writers that I've met and talked to will tell you that. Like you said, your morning journaling. A lot of writers will, uh, they write every single day, whether they use it for anything or not. They will write something every day, whether it be longhand
Yes.
or on the typewriter. I know one individual he lives in the woods too, but over on the north side of town, who is an English teacher. He's a virtual English teacher. He does virtual classes online. And every morning he goes out, he's got a shed out in the yard that it's set up kind of like a man cave, but it's his creative zone.
Mhm.
He has one of those old Royal typewriters. He doesn't use a computer out there.
Wow.
Now, when he does the
Wow.
serious stuff, of course you know, relies on his laptop and that kind of thing. But he goes out there to his shed with his coffee. He's got a coffee pot out there. Goes out there in the morning, has him some coffee, and taps away at that royal.
Yep. Every
and
day,
and
I'm sure he
every
does it every
day,
day because
every day.
that's what we have to do. Yeah.
Hmm. Well,
Hmm.
and Tim Gilmore, he has told me the same thing that he writes well, and he teaches literature. So I mean, he's in the thick of it, like almost every waking hour. And he's written
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
I think 22, 24 books. Mostly, most of his
Wow.
books have to, yeah, most of his books have to deal with things that have happened in and around North Florida. A lot of history type
Hmm.
things, and they're all good. I mean, he's written about Ottis Toole and some of the old houses in the area, some of the rich families around the turn of the
Wow.
century, some of the old whorehouses in Jacksonville. I mean, he's written about everything. And all of his books are available on Amazon, and I mean, he does pretty good with it. I mean, it's not like he's selling novels like Stephen King. I think he's written like 60 novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about tonight over dinner, talking about Stephen King, one of his writings,
Uh-huh.
11/22/63, which is about JFK, and that deals with
Mhm.
time travel, oddly enough. So we were having a conversation over dinner about that as well. So yeah, the joys of being a writer.
Yeah. Yeah. Storytelling. Um, and I don't know if do they have any in your area up there in New Hampshire? Do you have the opportunity to be around other writers, or be in groups with other writers, or do they have like story slams up there, that kind of thing, like Barbara Colacello does here in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I wish, and I'm sure they exist, but where I am, I'm in a very rural part of
Uh,
like right in the middle of the state, um, about an hour or so north of Boston. So
okay.
if I want to get immersed in my culture and immersed in art and music, and if I want to see a major concert, I'll take that drive down to Boston, and it's worth it. But
Oh
where I
yeah.
am, I'm sort of like in this little bubble. I'm on about 4 acres of land, surrounded by
Yeah.
woods, little house on the hill, and I just saw a raccoon tonight. I see turkeys quite often, and there's deer, and
Yeah.
I'm in the country, and it's very conducive for me as a writer. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I, sometimes, I complain and make fun about, living out in the boondocks. And I do. I live way out a long way from anywhere. And trust me, the only culture out here is Carolina drop trucks and Confederate flags. That's it.
Oh my God.
I mean, literally. And I was
Yeah.
telling, I was telling the young lady I was interviewing last night. I told her, I said, I don't get into Jacksonville that much anymore, uh, and when I do, I make a really long day out of it. I may even go stay for a weekend. I'll pile up on somebody's couch for a night or two, just so I can make the rounds,
Yeah.
because I may not get back down there for 2 or 3 weeks. And people say, well, it's only an hour drive. And I'm like, well, that's an hour out of my day. And that's one way.
Yeah.
One way is 50 minutes from where I'm at. The closest Circle K convenience store to my house is like 7 miles. So there's nothing out here.
Yeah. Anywhere for
Uh,
me, it's about a 30-minute drive anywhere for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I completely
And
understand.
I really do enjoy living out in the woods, just like you say. You do get close to nature. Every morning I go sit on the back porch and talk to my cats, and it's an everyday thing to go out there in the morning and work in the yard, because it's such a big yard. So I have to constantly keep up with the fallen trees and take care of the lawn equipment. I got two riding mowers and a tractor, and I got to take care of all that stuff. And it's a chore. It's a daily chore, especially when springtime hits and everything starts turning green.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
But it keeps you young, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I'm young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm young. So now the book, the Time Travelers anthology journal
Digest.
right. That will be out in what, May or June or later?
It will. It is going to be later. Here's why. So I
Okay.
made an executive decision because I'm an
Hmm.
executive, the owner of my own business, Professor
Right.
Clark Media. I decided, I want this magazine to sit for a second. The magazine Temporal Visions
Hmm.
I decided to release in February. It is a 80-page full color. I have a copy right here. You can kind of see it.
Oh,
Hardcover,
good. Yeah.
UV
Yeah.
coated, full color print with some of the character designs you can kind of see here. A lot of the short stories, and based on the feedback of the individuals that purchased it, and also now it's an ebook form on Amazon. Based on their feedback, people feel like they're getting a little bit of a one up, almost like a little precursor to what's coming. But this gives me a chance to, one, finish the edits that
Hmm.
need to be made to the book, and then two, to really give it the marketing attention it really deserves, so I can actually build the foundation of the target audience that I'm trying to reach. Those individuals who like Black speculative fiction or
Right.
Afrocentric art
Right.
or time travel and science fiction, getting that word out through the
Hmm.
magazine and some of the short stories by way of the podcast as well. And that gives me a chance to spend all of
Right.
the summer talking to people like you, working the circuit. I'll be back down in
Hmm.
Florida in the summer to do a lot of book promotions, then talk about some of the magazine. And then at the end of the summer, that's when you'll get a chance to get the full culmination of the whole novel in your hand. And by that point, I will have already had two other editions of the magazine out because it's a quarterly magazine. So the first one, even though this is a hardcover print version, this is the very inaugural version of the magazine, and I decided
Hmm.
that subsequent versions will be in ebook format, but will be available on Amazon so that people can still read it.
Oh,
Also,
good.
several of
Good.
the stories are on Kindle Vella as well. So yeah, just want to put some more effort into it the right way. and not rush
Right.
it like
Right.
I've done in the past with a lot of my other projects. I've rushed, and I'm like, this one I don't have to rush because it's my life's work. I put it out when
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the time's right.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually very smart marketing for um, a smaller entrepreneurial venture. It's smart marketing to release bits and pieces, breadcrumbs for
Yes.
people to
Yes.
follow. It's smart marketing. I have been lazy in doing the same for my stuff. Um, but here recently, now that I've started using the Riverside platform, I can bust up the videos into small pieces, and all the audio and all the transcripts are downloadable, so I can use all that. And now, actually, I'll be honest with you, I feed some of this material into that Chat GPT, the Open AI. I feed some, and some of the stuff that
Yeah.
comes popping back at me is mind blowing. I don't know if you've played with it any.
I
Some of
know.
it is way off
Oh,
base,
yes.
but some of it is pretty accurate. I mean, it just pulls off of Google, but then it's like puts together little stories that have nothing to do. I've been looking up people and stuff like that on it, and man, some of that stuff is just out there. It's far out there. It told me that you
Yeah.
died in a
Yeah.
car crash a couple. It told me that you died in a car crash a couple years ago. I'm like, I don't think he
Maybe
did.
in another timeline. Here
There
I
was a
am.
time hop. Yeah, there was a time hop there, I guess. I don't know. Oh, and I did one on Shelton the other night too, and we were talking about it when we did the podcast. I read it to him. He's like, "Oh, that's partly true." That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Oh, but
I'm a fan
I'm
of
having
Chat
fun with it.
GPT.
Yeah, it's fun. I
Yeah,
I, I
I
find
mean
it.
that's all you can
It's
do.
more. It's more fun to me than playing around on Google. I
Definitely.
mean, you can. I mean, you can
Yeah.
fact check. I mean, you could just like you're supposed to when you're writing stuff anyway. You're supposed to fact check. So, I mean, I look at some of the opening lines on some of these things that I pull up, and then I fact check. And usually, when it brings up a story for me, like I put in there, what if Shakespeare were to read about Noam Chomsky? Shelton was being a wise ass, and he brought that up. So I put it into the chat, and it spit out some horrendous stuff. It was actually hilarious, most of it. I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
"Are you kidding me?" I sent it to
Oh
him, and
yeah.
I thought he was going to spit his coffee out.
Yeah, it is a powerful tool, Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I personally use ChatGPT for marketing materials, and
Mm-hmm.
I have had
Sure.
it. I feel like it is like to me having a powerful assistant who I can say, "Hey, I got this idea. I need you to
Right.
do this, and I need you to do this, and then I want you to do this." And then it outputs all of this stuff. And then I go, wow, that's really good. Now
Mm-hmm.
do this. And then it goes this, this, this. And then it gives you a real good fundamental basis, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell ChatGPT, don't use that word again. I don't want to ever use any of that word in any of my marketing materials. One of the words was enigma and amalgamation. It kept putting that word out all the time. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that all the time.
Enough already.
But it is enough already, right? It's a powerful tool, but it's just that.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about it on my blog because I am sort of an early adopter when it comes to new technologies and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I wrote about it where ChatGPT has a little bit of a, how can I say this? It's a little sarcastic because when I
Some
was
of it,
creating the
yeah.
magazine here, you can see this is the back of it. That was all AI art generated. I didn't use ChatGPT, but I used Midjourney, and I have a business license with Midjourney that I can actually sell the material. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked ChatGPT, I said, well, why is it that every time I input something, the default image is not a person of color? And ChatGPT said, well, apparently the programmers who are developing Midjourney didn't make it a priority in their programming. So that goes to say, it
Oh,
talks about the data sets and how a lot of a lot of the material that is built in AI is really because it's a machine learning what we
yeah.
want and what we, what we're prompting. It basically said that the data sets are from individuals who are not people of color, who are white people that are programming, and they're just not including people of color. So by
How
default, you
about
don't get
that?
that. So I have to
Wow.
train the bot to give me my images in with of people of color, of whether it be Indians or people of Asians or even African Americans, and
Right.
because you input versus output, but that's what it really
Sure.
comes down to. So I find it
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah. I haven't myself played around with much of the AI generated art other than a couple of the phone apps. Nothing serious, but yeah, a couple of the phone apps,
Yeah,
that which are nothing more than basically filters. But the AI generated art, I haven't played with any of that. Haven't had the need to really. Most of the I like I told you before when I sent you the graphic that I'll be using for promo here. Uh, Most all the graphics that I use just for promo stuff, very basic. I use basic and primary colors, uh, uh, and they're all pretty much all of them are. I still do some stuff with Photoshop, but not as much anymore since I started playing around with Canva, and I've been using Canva now for a couple of years. And so at the
yeah,
account that I have at Canva, I just got that thing loaded up with all kinds of templates that I pre-built. And so I just drop in images
yeah,
whenever I need them. Yeah, I drop them in when I need them and just go with it. And usually what I do is I size my images, the ones that I use for promo. I just size them basically in two different sizes. One size that'll fit YouTube thumbnails, and which you can use anywhere else too, for that matter. It just gets resized on Facebook anyway. And then the other is I use format them to 1080 by 1080, the size for Instagram posts. And
yes,
those same thing. You can use them practically anywhere, and they'll resize to the frame. So yeah, I'll make two images of the same thing. One is a YouTube thumbnail and one is a Instagram post image, and I use them both interchangeably across all the platforms. So and it makes it easier and streamlined.
yeah. If it works, it works. For
Yeah,
me, how
yeah.
I got involved with Midjourney, as I was writing, I got to the point where I had written all of my character profiles, and in my mind, I
Hmm.
knew who Demetrius the Wise, how he looked. I knew how Amara Eden, one of the other students, I knew how she looked. And I was curious. And my curiosity is what really led me to Midjourney. So I started creating these prompts. I originally used Wander Art on the phone, and
Okay,
I was
I've
creating these
seen that one.
prompts. And then
Hmm.
when Midjourney came back out, I took those same prompts and I plugged them into Midjourney and was blown away
Oh,
about
really?
why I did this. And then I looked up, here in January, and I was like, okay, I have over 2,000, maybe 3,000 images that I've rendered that I haven't even published. And I'm like, what can I do with this? How can I frame these images around this story and use this to be able to convey the story? Because we do live in a very visual society. People
Hmm.
like to visually see things. Regrettably, a lot of people don't want to read. We'll rather text the emoji, or we would rather just see an image before we read. We would
That's
rather see a video before
hmm
we actually read something. So
right.
that's why I sort of led with the magazine first. It does have in the magazine, it's got short stories. There are all the characters have a profile where you see their face. You can read about who they are. Some of the characters are writing letters, where originally that was kind of how I wanted the book to be, a collection of the student letters, because the students are learning at the Academy for Time Travelers, in Egypt, and the protagonist
Mm-hmm.
is the one that's teaching them the art of what's called temporal science. And I wanted to be able to take these images and put them into play so that they can, of course, even spark some of my writing. So if you see this guy, he's not even in the book at all. He just looks good for the cover. So
Hey,
I decided
whatever sells,
he's not
man.
even a real person. He doesn't even have a name. But and now I have the hiccups because I've been sitting here drinking this wine. So
Well,
I'll let you
that's
talk
all
for a minute while I recalibrate my diaphragm here.
right. Well, yeah. Uh, as as we move forward here, you say that of course, you've decided you're going to be coming down to Florida for, like, I guess a kind of a book tour, promo kind of tour, and I'm sure a soft vacay as well. Uh, Catch up with some friends and family while you're down. There's a lot going on down here, and I sparked that before, and I know you've been following it. Who hadn't been following it? One of the things that has been on pretty much every one of our podcasts, and even my audio podcast where I don't have video, I talk about a lot of the things that are going on in Florida besides arts and culture and all that. But what's currently happening with the Florida legislature and some of the bills being passed, it's affecting arts and culture, and it's affecting people's
Yeah,
livelihoods. The not just the ban on the books and the whole battle, the whole battle with Disney World and all that that's going on, but more recently as well, the ban on drag queens, and in specifically what flared that up was the drag story hour, and
yeah,
that has drag shows, pride parades. That's going to really affect pride parades because cities won't be able to issue permits to have those parades because they're so public. So
right.
you're talking about
Yeah,
thousands and thousands of dollars per city that normally would be celebrating Pride and having Pride parades. And some cities have already said that they're canceling their parades. I've already said it. And the law hasn't even gone into effect quite yet. But some of the local clubs in Jacksonville, there's a couple of local microbreweries that have trivia nights. Everybody has a trivia night. Now it's a trend over the last
hmm,
several years, but they now have drag trivia nights. Hamburger Mary's and a couple of the other microbreweries do a trivia night with one of the drag queens. Uh, Wade, she hosts one of them.
oh yeah, Carissa Wade. Yeah,
Yeah, Carissa T. Wade. She hosts one of them.
hmm,
But now the brewery that has her every week, and it's like every Tuesday or Wednesday night, something like that. If I'm wrong, forgive me. But once a week they have this show, or every other week, something like that. Again, the owner of the bar, the brewery, has said they've released a statement on saying that we're still going to continue doing it, and we're going to have it, but now it's 21 and older, and families can no longer come in there with their kids. Uh, and so they're actually, the business will be closed to the public unless you're registered to be at the trivia game, so that they can ensure that people that come in are over 21. So it is affecting
yeah,
people's bottom line, even on that small scale. You talk about many, many, many places that are having to do the same thing. It's affecting their bottom line.
hmm,
And again, like with the on the larger scale, the pride parades are being nixed because of it, and you can imagine the thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue lost because of it. Because a lot of the pride parades not only bring in people from out of town to join in the celebration, and a lot of people come to be in the parade itself. But these parades are usually
yeah,
down, usually go down through either a downtown area or down a main street where there's a lot of small businesses, mom and pop businesses. 5 Points, for instance, parade goes through there, And
Yes.
all those small businesses are going to be missing out on that revenue because a lot of people come in there, they linger before and after the parade, and they go in and out of those little, the little bars and the restaurants make a ton of money because people stay in town, they hang out, everybody wants to share their pictures, and they're stifling a lot of people's livelihoods, and this is also not only the people that enjoy the drag performances, but it's also affecting the livelihoods of the drag performers who rely on those shows for extra income. Because very few of them locally, very few of them on a local level are doing it full time enough for it to be their sole source of income. But a lot of them do rely on it as an extra source. Just like musicians in town rely on those gigs for an extra source of income, and they really work their butts off. So what is your take on that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, and I talked about at the beginning when we first started talking.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's nothing new under the sun. And
No.
going back to my book, of course, I'm trying to make it all about my book with Time Traveler's Digest. My why literally deals with the same thing. So if we would just for a quick moment, let's travel back in time to the year 52 BCE. So that's 52 years before the birth of Christ. And at that time, Julius Caesar was over Rome, along with Pompey. And then you have on the throne Cleopatra, the seventh, and her husband and brother, by the way, Ptolemy. They rule the throne. At the same time, the same information, the same type of culture war was happening in Africa, in Egypt. And, Julius Caesar, then he's flexing his muscles. He goes right into Egypt to flex because his buddy, Pompey, Pompey's got this big infantry. He's got this big army. He's flexing. So he goes there to Egypt, not only his own land, to figure out where Pompey is. And Cleopatra says, oh, by the way, your boy, Pompey, here's his head and here's his ring to prove it. He's not here. The reason I brought all this up.
Right.
So during that same time, when Julius Caesar arrives, the Library of Alexandria, which is actually where the conflict resides in my novel, library, books. What happened to the library? The library was burned. But history, everything that I've read when I was doing my research for this book, there's no definitive answer on how the library was burned. Some say Julius Caesar did it. Some say that it may have been an accident. Some say it could have been a soldier. And I said to myself when I was reading this, I said, wow, this is kind of ambiguous. It's kind of open. We don't have a real open answer on what happened. But let's talk about the library for a second. And I'll bring it back to how it matters today.
Sure.
The Library of Alexandria, at that time, if you think of here's Alexandria, and you have at the tip of Africa, the top of Africa, you have this little horseshoe, and people would drive their ships into the great harbor. In the harbor, it was the largest harbor. As the ships would come in, the scribes would go to the boats, they'd take the scrolls, all the materials off, and they would instantly, at that moment, take the original materials and then take it to the library. The original materials were held in the library, and they would make copies. They'd transcribe everything that they're reading, whether it be from the Vikings, whether it be from the Asians, the Chinese. They take all this material and they transcribe it, and they keep the originals in the library and then give the materials, the copies, back to those people to take it back to where they were. So a lot of the stuff was copies that went back, not the originals. So you have original works that now have been burned.
I'm still here.
700,000 plus scrolls
I'm still here.
were destroyed and burned. And it was said that it may have been an accident. So here we are Fast forward 2,000 plus years, and now we have state legislatures, governments, the governor, the one that is always on the news talking about his woke agenda, taking
Yeah, no shit.
that position in a different way to squelch the knowledge, to not have the knowledge shared. And how can we gain as a society if we don't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and we continue to to create we create dissonance, or we create segregation, or we disenfranchise a lot of the disses. We create these things to make one group look better than the other group. And I just feel like here we are again, and it will
Mm-hmm.
only occur. This will only occur if we allow it to happen. We, there's I don't know the name of the quote, but if we continue to sit idly by and we do nothing, we may as well be just as complicit. We're allowing it to happen. We can't just say, we can talk
True.
about it all day till we're blue in the face, but why do we continue
Right.
to allow this to happen to our knowledge? Nobody's doing this to
Right.
the Jewish culture.
Right.
Nobody's doing this to the Asian culture. Why are we doing this? What's the real
Yeah.
gain? Is there something, again, even going back to the Library of Alexandria, is there something that was needed to be hidden? Was there something that needed to be destroyed because we don't want the masses to read this? We don't want the masses to know this because the masses may be educated to, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
apprised to something, or they may
Right.
revolt or cause a revolution, whatever the case may be.
Oh,
Why do we as
yeah.
citizens continue to allow this type of behavior to happen historically? That's the question.
Yeah. It's yeah, and you're absolutely right. That they are some of the books that have been banned. It, ridiculous reasons. Even Maya Angelou, some of her writings, To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, just there is all kinds of books. Even a Dr. Seuss book was banned, believe it or not.
Wow.
The Lorax, the book The
Oh,
Lorax, that
yeah.
was banned from schools. Now, I've said this before too, that I understand that there is age appropriate literature. And of course, they're talking about books that are in the classrooms and in the school library, accessible by very young children. Now, and I've said this before many times, a lot of the teenagers, the books that they're banning, uh, come on, people. Teenagers have been on the internet for years already,
Yeah.
and they already know a lot of the stuff that you're trying to keep them from reading on paper.
Exactly.
So, I mean, kids are going to find out if they so choose to. That's another thing too. A lot of the children that are in the families of these people that are for the book bans, the people that are for banning the books, and the ones that are the loudest about it, darn well that they're actually keeping that kind of information from their children at home as well,
Yeah.
keeping them in a bubble. They're not talking to their kids at the dinner table about things that matter in the world. They're talking to their kids about things that matter on Fox News. So, I mean, really, and I'm not just,
Yeah.
I'm not stereotyping. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the way some of these children live, the homes that they live in, and the way that their parents talk. Uh, it astounds me. It's
Yeah.
just a smidgen to the right of being abusive behavior. I mean, literally, in my mind,
Yeah.
if you're
And then
keeping children from learning, you're stifling education for children. I mean, they're just going to grow up to be ignorant adults.
right. And then you take into consideration, you have there's another side of the coin as well, where you have, let's say you have
Mm-hmm.
a single mom who is a nurse, and
Mm-hmm.
she has to work a
Mm-hmm.
double, and her
Yeah.
young 15, 16-year-old child is at home, and she also has two kids. Let's say, there's a 9-year-old or a 7-year-old. Now you have this 14,
Mm-hmm.
15, 16-year-old taking care of their young sibling with no parental guidance.
Yeah.
There's no
Right.
one talking about supervision. There's, no one to
Right.
say, hey, you're spending too much time playing this game, or what are you reading? Let me see what you're reading. There's none of that as well. And then there's also no conversations as well that's happening. So
Right.
this big giant economic gap, it's heavy on both sides, where you have the wealthier, the
Sure.
individuals who are more affluent that can sit at the dinner table and talk to their family, but they're talking about Fox News. And you have the people who are, the moms and the single parents working the extra hard work to do their best, and
Mm-hmm.
their children aren't really getting who's helping them with their homework, who's quality controlling, and who's checking them with that. So
Yeah.
it's both sides. So everything is being
Yeah. Yeah.
affected by this whole thing
Mm-hmm.
altogether. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
real interesting
And
state
how?
of affairs where we are.
Yeah. I know. And how many of those people do you think volunteer their time to go to the public library and have story time for kids?
Very little, if any.
The loudest ones are the least involved.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
really. Well, I tell you what, Damien, I've enjoyed this conversation with you. I'm going to let everybody know about your project, about your book, about your
Thank you.
ebook, the quarterly ebook. I'm gonna get a hold of all the links and make sure that they're in all the descriptions on our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we'll just spread some love for you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. It's great to
Oh,
catch
you
up.
bet.
It's good to see you. I'll link up with you when I'm down there in Florida
Oh,
in a couple months.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. When you get down here, you make sure you get with me, and we'll go have we'll go have some ramen or some pho or something, or maybe a big
Yeah.
old chunk of red meat. I don't know.
All right, Tracy.
All
Cool.
right, peace, brother.
Take it easy.
I'd like to thank all my friends, fans, and followers over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, like, share, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get notifications whenever we have a new episode come up. And don't forget that the podcast itself, the audio version, can be streamed on all major streaming platforms. And you can find my crazy shenanigans over on TikTok. In my closing thoughts, I wanted to talk about, let's back it up just a little bit. In some of the topics that Damien brought up, the correlation between some of the things, the time traveling in his stories, which are brilliant, by the way, and I highly recommend you guys look him up. I'm going to have the links provided here in the description on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on our website, thecontrastproject.tv. The artwork is nothing less than spectacular. Some beautiful work. He's put a lot of time into it, and the stories are so imaginative and yet so insightful. The correlation between time travel and days gone by, the past, and some of the things that we're seeing today. And we talked about that. We touched on that close to the end of the episode there. The burning of the books, the stifling of education, keeping people from learning. And that is definitely something that we're dealing with in modern day times, not just worldwide and in third world countries where we know that a lot of that has been going on forever and ever, but it's happening in the United States now, and it's something we should always fight for, is the right for adequate education. History is history. whether it's uncomfortable. If history being taught is not making you uncomfortable, then you're not learning from it, and we're destined to repeat that we don't learn. So, anyway, in the meantime, be vigilant, be careful, be safe, and in the words of Jerry Springer, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.